What if I told you that you could earn an entire living simply by playing video games? That there is a world out there where there are untold virtual riches to be earned, worth thousands of dollars of real money, ripe for the taking? What if I told you that the only one standing in your way from total financial freedom through gaming is you?
If somebody told you that, then they lied, or at least they didn't tell you the whole truth. In this episode of MMONFT, we're going to be looking at play-to-earn games, what they are, and whether you can make real money from them, or if it's all just one big gimmick. Let's check it out. Let's start by talking a little bit about what play-to-earn actually is. In a play-to-earn game, the premise is simple. You play the game and you earn either NFTs, which are non-fungible token assets, or a cryptocurrency. And later on, you can trade those in for real money value. That's the very basic premise of what play-to-earn actually is. But there are some complexities to play-to-earn systems that go beyond just playing the game. And to really understand that, you have to get into the specifics of that specific game. Let's start with a game like Axie Infinity, which is probably the biggest play-to-earn game on the market at the moment. Axie has a few complexities, one of which is that to start the game, you have to purchase 3 Axies, essentially buying your way into the game, which would cost you a little bit of cash. Even if you pop onto the market and see Axies going for $20 or $30 and think that's not so bad, you have to take into consideration the gas fees associated with the transfer that you'll have to end up paying, which could be around $50 or way more just in themselves, on top of any additional fees. In that way, depending on the Axies you want, you could spend anywhere from $250 to $600 just to get started. While playing Axie, you will earn SLP or Smooth Love Potion tokens, which have real value. The value fluctuates and right now stands at somewhere around 7 cents USD. Average players can roughly earn about 150 potions a day or more depending on the quest that they're doing and how many battles they win, which equates to about $10 to $15 a day or roughly over $400 a month, which is not too shabby. Players can use that SLP along with Axis tokens, AXS tokens, to breed Axies and eventually sell those Axies for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Granted, the Axies that you've bred are the kind that players actually want. It's also important to note that you can only breed an Axie 7 times. So what you earn in Axie Infinity fluctuates, and while it may not be the most exciting game out there, there is potential to earn there for pretty much anyone willing to put in the time. Even if it may not be enough to quit your job outright, Axie is extremely big in countries like the Philippines, where earning $400, $500, on up to $800 or $1,200 when the market's good, just off of SLP is huge. But for much of the Western world, it's the equivalent of maybe a minimum wage job, or actually probably worse. The price fluctuations between the market and the gas fees can also swing rapidly, so it can change the income at a moment's notice. In other games where NFTs rely on their rarity for value, like a game like Blankos Block Party, getting lucky is all part of the game. While you can earn many NFTs in-game through their party pass, the big money seems to come from buying the hottest new Blankos when they drop, and then reselling them once they are no longer available. Getting into single-digit minted NFTs can be the difference between selling a Blanko for thousands or them not selling at all. So here's the thing though. Despite the sales pitch that you can earn your living through these kind of games, and by teasing that every new game that's coming out, a blockchain game, play-to-earn game, is going to be the next big thing before a game even ever really materializes, it isn't leading to anything good. And in many cases, players and investors are just throwing themselves at projects before there is much of a game to even play. The playbook is to invest early and invest often and hope for the best, because the crypto market is just so crazy right now. The early investors in blockchain games are often the ones that come out ahead, and it's one reason there's a big misconception about blockchain and how the whole crypto and NFT game is one big pyramid scheme, where the ones who get in early are at the top, and eventually they just prey on the newcomers, hoping to make money when they buy in. In many ways, these people are just clouded by the monetary aspects, and that's why while play-to-earn games can make you some money, and in some cases be your primary income, like in the Philippines, like we were talking about before. For blockchain games to really take hold and be in the mainstream, we need to move on from the get-rich-quick scheme, and we need to move from play-to-earn to games being actually fun, games that you want to play, with the philosophy of play and earn. And with me today, I have game director Derek Lau of an upcoming game called Guild of Guardians. Derek recently wrote a fantastic article on Cointelegraph about the way some developers are handling play-to-earn games and why so many of them may be great in making money for the developers, but are often not very good games. The article is going to be linked in the description, and I urge you to check it out. Hey Derek, thanks for joining me today. So I wanted to start by saying in your article you talk a little bit about what blockchain games do wrong. So can you tell us a little bit about what you think blockchain games are doing wrong currently?
I don't want to hate on any other blockchain games, but I think where a lot of games focus today is on the crypto aspect. So it's very much being designed for an audience that is already experienced with blockchain, knows how to use it. And you can tell by looking at maybe their focus on different elements of the game, where they're spending the energy. Maybe look at by the name itself, it'll be called like Ether something, or crypto something half the time, right? And so that's why we've seen a lot of the focus so far. Whereas I think there's a massive opportunity for games to not just appeal to this niche audience, but for games which have NFTs in them to be used in a really unique way while appealing to your average gamer. And that's kind of what we're trying to do at Guild of Guardians.
Another thing you mentioned is that a lot of these games are using engines like Unity that use a lot of Unity store assets to put out something like a short demo, and it really looks more like they're selling the ability to invest in the game, and they don't really have much of a game to start with.
Well, right now the crypto market is extremely hot, and so it is, well, fortunately or unfortunately, it's easy, so to speak, for a project to sell NFTs before the game has been released. Our project has seen massive demand, but we're not even trying to, maximize the amount of money we make, because it's not beneficial for us long term. But for many projects, it's a great time to be selling NFTs before the game is out. And so you'll often see many projects kind of release a website, release a couple of example assets. Maybe they don't have footage, and then they'll do a sale. And then in like 3 to 4 months time, people have forgotten about them. I think at the same time, there will be a bunch of projects which are, committed and here long term. Is just, how do you know which one is which is always a big question.
A lot of games are posting constantly on their Twitter, on their Discord. Why do you think people are so interested in these games if there's really not that much to show yet?
We're at the beginning of a digital disruption, where for the first time ever, gamers can actually own their in-game items and trade them, and potentially not just spend money on a game, but potentially make money from a game, or even build a business around a game. And so I think this general movement is something that a lot of people really believe in, right? They believe it's going to happen, and they're interested in being early. So they're interested in being there at the very beginning and just being, traditional early adopters. There's a group of people who may just want to support the project. They really believe in the team, a bit like a traditional Kickstarter campaign. So they want to support the project, they believe in the team, and they're very interested in being there early. And then a large group of people also see this as an investment. So it's like, this is their opportunity to invest and have a piece of the game. And if the game does well, their investment will go up. I think that's where we're seeing a lot of the demand, not just from individuals, but we're also seeing it from like groups and funds as well.
Do you think there's developers out there who are saying that they just don't care that much about the gameplay because crypto's so hot? They're just really interested in catering to those who want to sell NFTs, and so they don't really put a lot of effort into the game simply because that's really not who they're trying to bring into the game. They really just want to focus on the investors.
I would say it's not necessarily sustainable as a way to make money. Like, you can't just keep selling again and again and expect people to keep buying. However, it's a great model that kind of reverses the game development cycle a bit, where you're not desperately clawing to try to raise funds from a VC at each milestone of development. Instead, you're actually getting like, hey, this is our community, like, why don't you build this game, like work with us to build this game, and you're raising the money up front like a Kickstarter, but instead of a Kickstarter, the players or the investors actually own NFTs, which they can trade. And in theory, what it means is that, you know, games which do these pre-sales then have more money and can do the development faster. You know, it's kind of de-risked, and they're more likely to develop the game. So in some ways, it is a very interesting shift of business models for developers, right? Who are looking to de-risk their revenue for the initial release. It doesn't make sense, and it's probably not ethical for projects who just like try to sell NFTs to make money at the promise of a game and then not care about if the game's good. You know, there are projects that are like that, which are basically scams, but there are also a lot of projects that aren't. Like, they're genuine developers. Maybe you have a small indie team and they're looking to really build this thing out, right? I think, to your point of like, is it the best way to make money? I don't think so. The number of dollars you see now for NFT games is very small compared to the number of dollars you would see for a game that actually is able to, you know, break into the mainstream audience. And that's part of our strategy, which is like kind of go big or go home. It's going to take time. It's not easy at all. The opportunity is definitely in having as many players as possible is where the opportunity comes from.
So when do you think we're going to see that shift between the play to earn mentality, where players are getting in early, trying to make money off the game and trying to make a living, to the play and earn philosophy, where players are just playing the game, gaining NFTs and just enjoying their time in the game?
The transition will happen over time. I think there's a, you know, big education piece generally around what an NFT actually is and why people should care that the things in the game that they own are NFTs. But luckily enough, I think that's actually happening faster than expected now. It's, you know, the fact that we're having this conversation, you know, makes me think that, you know, a lot of people know what NFTs are, especially a lot of gamers, right? They're beginning to understand. Whether they agree with it or not is a different question, but they know what they are. And the second one is that games take time to make. And so it's, you know, games can take years to make. And so it's not like someone can come up with the idea and immediately ship something the next month. I think there's a lot of things that are in the works that may not even be public, which people are working on, which are going to really elevate the quality of games that we see. And I think this is only going to increase over time. We're going to begin to see, like, every single shooter in the world right now is probably asking themselves, like, hey, like, how should we get into NFTs? Like, should we get into it? Like, what kind of game would make sense? Because the opportunity is so big, they can't ignore it. And so it's only a matter of time, and it is going to take time until we see more and more kind of titles released that showcases how, like, the true potential of NFTs.
With that in mind, I think that blockchain games are very intimidating to new players. You've got wallets to deal with, sometimes the buy-in's really high, there's a lot of confusing buzzwords going on. Is there something that you're doing specifically to combat this?
We've kind of had this vision from the beginning. Our goal is we want to build a fun and compelling game with or without NFTs. And then we're designing the game in a way that really makes use of NFTs, so that by having NFTs and an economy in the game, it actually makes the game more fun, as opposed to just letting you trade your skins in a game. Like, we're actually embedding it in a way such that it's part of the game. And this requires like a really fresh way of thinking, because traditionally games have closed economies. People can't trade, and that's how they're designed. That's how they monetize. But we've kind of have completely reversing that, and we're looking to really disrupt the game, disrupt the industry by creating this, you know, core gameplay that's really good, and this NFT-based design that is going to be super interesting, has this massive economy, and really showcases the value of NFTs. And at the same time, we also have we have a massive community already, and we're going to be looking to really leverage that as well. So Guild of Guardians is a mobile game, so we're building it for iOS and Android. So we're trying to make it as, you know, accessible as possible. The point about a wallet is a good one, because if we want players to own their stuff, then they have to have a wallet, right? And so that is something we're solving. The question we're solving is, like, how to create a good experience for someone who doesn't know what an NFT is and doesn't know what a wallet is. That's kind of what we're trying to solve. But that very much is part of our, kind of one of the pillars of our strategy, which is we want to disrupt the industry, break it up into mainstream audience, in order to do that, the user experience around how you interact with blockchain is very important.
Do you think in the future people are going to still continue to try and make a full-time income playing play-to-earn games or play and earn games?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that individuals will look to do it, as well as businesses and organizations will look to do it, and we're starting to see it already. Like our game hasn't come out yet, but we're already seeing people starting to recruit for their guild and create like alliances and all these things. And so that there's a massive opportunity here for people to really build like a lifestyle, like a business around it, and that's part of the appeal, I think.
Before we let you go, can you give us a quick pitch on what Guild of Guardians actually is?
So Guild of Guardians is a fantasy mobile RPG. So it's set in a familiar world. You'll be able to play as not just humans, but orcs, elves, dragons, all these different things. So very fun. It's kind of stylized on mobile. It's got a very unique art style. The goal of the game is to kind of build out your dream team. You build out your roster of heroes, and you can send them into dungeons to kind of battle monsters and bosses for rewards, and that's how you level up and progress in the game. The game is also very guild and social focused. A lot of the activities in the game modes are going to be focused around working together with the other guild members, doing raids and doing other things, or versing other guilds. What's really interesting about the game is that it's being designed with a real economy in mind. There's going to be many different ways to play and specialize, and not necessarily any right way. And so it's going to be really up to the players or the community members to discover how they want to play. Like, do they want to be the person who farms this particular resource because it's useful in this way? Do they want to kind of manage a guild? I think that's going to be super interesting, which is going to be seeing how players actually interact within this economy.
So high level recap here, is play to earn real? You betcha it is. There are many players out there playing all sorts of different games and making real money. Some are even making enough to quit their jobs. But it's important to put this all in perspective. Look, if you're like me and you are playing games because they are fun, then when you shift that focus into playing to earn money to live, especially when it's a game that isn't that fun to begin with, you're just trading one job for another one. It's just a different job. If we can reject the mentality that blockchain games should be created as earn first, instead of just being games where we want to play because we would be playing them anyways, that's really the sweet spot where I want to see blockchain games get to. To that end, we have a lot of great games that we're going to be showcasing in future episodes, as well as some more thought-provoking conversations with some of blockchain's biggest movers and shakers. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'd like to thank Derek Lau from Immutable for joining me. Make sure that you check out the project Guild of Guardians and keep an eye out for the next episode of MMONFT.